I paid my parents $700 a week every single week, just so they could help take care of my daughter while I worked. It wasn't charity, it wasn't even generosity, it was an agreement, a professional one. I was paying them for their time, their love, their presence in my daughter's life. But when her 5th birthday came around, the one she'd been talking about for months, they didn't show up. No call, no text, nothing. When I finally asked them why, their answer broke something inside me that I don't think will ever fully heal. Tell me honestly, was I wrong for what I did next, or did they finally get what they deserved? It started 3 years ago, when my daughter, Ava, was just 2. My husband, Ryan, had been laid off after the company he worked for downsized. We had bills piling up, daycare costs that were eating half our savings, and barely enough time to breathe. My parents had recently retired, and my mom had suggested, half jokingly, that they could watch Ava while I worked. I took that joke seriously. I thought it would be perfect. They'd get time with their granddaughter, and I'd get peace of mind knowing she was with family. Of course, I didn't expect them to do it for free. I wanted to show appreciation, and I also didn't want to owe anyone. So I offered to pay them $700 a week. They were hesitant at first, saying, "Honey, we don't need your money," but I insisted. I said, "Please, just treat it like a part-time job. You're helping me more than you know." That first year was great. My parents seemed to love spending time with Ava. My mom would send me little videos of her singing or painting. My dad built her a tiny playhouse in their backyard. I felt lucky. I'd drop Ava off every morning, go to work, and pick her up around 6. I'd always find her laughing, her hands covered in crayons, her hair in messy pigtails. My parents would sit together on the porch, smiling like they were reliving their own youth. It warmed my heart. I honestly thought we had the perfect balance, but then things slowly began to change. It started small. My mom began asking for extra money, just to cover groceries since Ava eats a lot, she said. Then it became, "Oh, we took her out for ice cream. Can you send another 50? I didn't think much of it. I was working overtime, trying to climb the ladder at my job, so throwing them a little more cash felt harmless. But soon I started noticing that whenever I picked Ava up, she'd tell me things that didn't make sense. Like, "Grandma says you work too much, and that's why you're tired all the time." Or "Grandpa said maybe I should stay here forever." I brushed it off as harmless talk, old people being sentimental. Then my mom started dropping hints. "You know, Ava really feels more comfortable here. You might think about letting her spend more nights with us." I didn't want to seem defensive, so I said, "That's sweet, but she needs her routine. I want her home with me." My mom just gave me that look, the kind where she pretends to understand but clearly doesn't. Around Ava's 4th birthday, I noticed my parents becoming entitled. That's the only word for it. They started acting like I owed them something beyond the money. My dad would say things like, "We're basically raising your kid," or "You're lucky we don't charge you more." It stung, because I never forced them into this. I offered because I thought it was fair. I was giving them $700 every week, that's $2,800 a month. That's more than some people's full-time paycheck. One evening, I picked Ava up after work, and she had a new tablet in her hands. I hadn't bought it. When I asked, my mom said, "Oh, we used some of the money you send to get her something nice." I didn't mind, but it bothered me that they hadn't even asked. It was becoming clear. They didn't see it as my money paying for their help. They saw it as their money, and I was just an afterthought. Fast forward to a month before Ava's 5th birthday. She was so excited. Every day she'd talk about her unicorn party, and how Grandma promised to bring cupcakes. My mom had even helped her pick out decorations. I thought everything was fine. But the day before the party, I called to confirm their arrival time, and my mom said, "Actually, honey, we won't be able to make it. We're going away for the weekend." I laughed, thinking she was joking, but she wasn't. I asked, "What do you mean, you're going away?" "Ava's been talking about this for months." My mom sighed and said, "We need a break. We've been watching her nonstop. We deserve some time off." I felt my stomach drop. I reminded her that I'd paid them every week without fail. "You're not volunteers, Mom. You're compensated. You can't just skip out like this. She's your granddaughter." My mom got quiet for a moment, then said words I'll never forget. You think money buys love, but it doesn't. Maybe if you spent more time with your child instead of paying us, she'd want you around more. I froze. I couldn't even process it. My voice cracked when I said, "How dare you? You think I'm doing this because I don't care. I'm doing it for her, to give her stability, a home, a future." My mom just said coldly, "We'll talk when we get back," and she hung up. The next day, Ava kept asking, "Where's Grandma? Where's Grandpa?" And I had to smile through tears, saying, "They'll come by later, sweetie." They never did. The party went on without them. We had friends, neighbors, and my husband's side of the family. Ava had fun, but when we brought out the cake, she looked around and whispered, "They forgot me, didn't they?" That broke me. I promised her they didn't, but deep down I knew. They chose themselves over her. 2 days later, I called them again, ready to let them have it. But before I could even start, my dad said, "We need to talk about next month's payment." I was stunned. I said, "You skipped my child's birthday, and that's what you want to talk about?" He said, "We didn't sign up to be full-time babysitters. We're tired. If you still want our help, the new rate is $1,000 a week." I felt like I'd been punched. Not because of the money, though that was insane, but because it made everything clear. They didn't care about Ava. They cared about the cash. All those grandparent bonding moments were just part of their paycheck. And they had the nerve to raise their rates right after breaking my daughter's heart. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below. What would you have done in my place? Would you keep paying your parents for child care after something like that? Or would you cut them off completely? When they came back from their weekend getaway, I didn't call, I didn't text. I just stopped sending the payments. A week later, my mom called me angry. "We didn't get the transfer. Did you forget?" I said, calm but cold, "No, I didn't forget. I'm done." She started yelling, saying, "You can't just take advantage of us and then stop paying." That word, advantage, made my blood boil. I said, "Advantage, you're the ones who took advantage of me. You skipped her birthday, Mom. You made her cry. You raised your rates like this was some business contract gone bad. You've made it clear you don't want to be grandparents, you want to be employees, so consider this your resignation." And I hung up. They didn't take it well. My dad sent me a long message saying I was being ungrateful, that they'd done more than enough for me, that I was turning Ava against them. My mom posted some vague Facebook status about ungrateful children forgetting who raised them. I ignored it. I didn't want a social media war. I just wanted peace. But things got ugly when they showed up at my house unannounced a week later. My dad said they wanted to talk things out, but really it was an ambush. They started guilt, tripping me again how hard retirement is, how expensive life has become, how they sacrificed their time. I told them I never forced you. You could have said no from the start. My mom snapped. "We said yes because we thought it meant you trusted us. We didn't know you'd turn it into a job." I replied, "You took the money every week without complaint. You cashed every payment. You raised the rate. So don't act like you were just doing it out of love." Then my dad said something that changed everything. He said, "If you hadn't paid us, we probably wouldn't have done it." I looked at Ava, who was peeking from behind the hallway door, and something inside me shattered. My parents, the people who raised me, the ones who used to say family means everything, just admitted that they wouldn't have helped their granddaughter without a paycheck. I told them to leave. My mom started crying, saying, "You're going to regret this one day." I said, "Maybe, but at least I'll be teaching my daughter that love isn't something you buy." And I closed the door. The weeks that followed were rough. Ava asked about them every day. I didn't want to poison her against them, so I just said, "Grandma and Grandpa are busy right now." I found a wonderful babysitter, a retired teacher who genuinely adored Ava. I still paid her, obviously, but the difference was night and day. She cared. She came to Ava's next birthday, brought gifts, and even stayed to help clean up. My parents. They didn't even send a card. Months passed before my mom finally called again. Her voice was softer this time. She said, "I miss Ava. Can we come visit?" I hesitated. I didn't want to deprive my daughter of her grandparents, but I also didn't want to let those old wounds reopen. I told her, "You can, but only if we agree no money, no conditions, no guilt, just family. She was quiet for a long time, then said, "We'll see." They never came. It's been almost a year now. Ava's doing great. She's in kindergarten, making friends, thriving. Sometimes she still mentions her grandparents, and I tell her stories about the good times before everything fell apart. I don't want her to hate them, but I can't forget how quickly they put a price tag on love, so maybe I overreacted. Maybe I should have just swallowed my pride and kept paying. But every time I think about that birthday, the empty chairs, the little girl looking around for the people who promised to be there, I know I did the right thing. Because I realized something important that day. Family isn't about blood or money or obligation. It's about showing up, and they didn't. So tell me, was I wrong for cutting my parents off? Or did I finally teach them that love doesn't come with an invoice? Like this video if you think I did the right thing. Subscribe for more stories like this, and share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments below. I'll see you all in the next story.